A lot of us are asking questions about the US's recent actions involving Venezuela. Mainly, how can the actions be justified and how international law is meant to apply in situations like this? But to me, it points to a broader issue. When international law is tested, whether through action, language, or intent, what actually happens next? Welcome back to Where Truth is Valued. People say things in good faith. Governments make statements they believe to be true. That doesn't make these statements false, but it does mean that they can be examined. On this podcast, we take claims as they are and place them alongside the facts, the law, and the historical record. Hi, my name is Abisoye, and in the last episode, we looked at what it means when leaders say they'll defend the international rule of law and what the historical record shows. Today's episode flows naturally from that because there's a question that tends to come up for me whenever international law is discussed. If countries break the rules and nothing seems to happen, what's the point? International law is not enforced the way that domestic law is. There's no global police force, but that doesn't mean that it has no effect or no purpose. So let's take a look at what can happen when international law is violated and what actually has happened in practice. The International Court of Justice, the ICJ, is the UN's principal justice organ. It settles legal disputes between states and issues advisory opinions. Take Russia and Ukraine, for example. In cases brought by Ukraine, the ICJ ruled that Russia should suspend its military operations. Russia has not complied, and the fact is the ICJ cannot enforce its rulings militarily, but the ruling still mattered because it strengthened the legal basis for sanctions against Russia, it increased diplomatic isolation, and it provided justification for continued international support to Ukraine. So the law did not stop the war, but it has shaped the response to it. We can also look at Israel. The ICJ issued provisional measures relating to Israel's conduct in Gaza, and this was aimed at preventing violations of the Genocide Convention. Israel disputed interpretations that the ruling required a ceasefire or declared its actions unlawful, and while there was no direct enforcement, the decision increased diplomatic and legal pressure. Sanctions are the most common response to violations of international law. Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, sanctions were imposed by the UK, the EU, the United States, and these sanctions had economic impact, technological impact, long-term political consequences. So the clarity of the legal framing that the invasion was illegal made coordinated sanctions politically possible. Another consequence is isolation. During the apartheid era, South Africa faced international legal condemnation, sanctions, sporting and cultural boycotts. The measures were not immediate, but sustained pressure eventually contributed to systematic change. It's also really important to note that the International Court of Justice deals with disputes between states. It doesn't put people on trial. So while the International Court of Justice can't prosecute anyone, there's a court designed to do just that. In 2024, the International Criminal Court prosecutor applied for arrest warrants related to the war in Gaza, including for the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel's former defense minister. These are allegations, not convictions, and enforcement remains uncertain, but the move shows the ICC can formally identify individuals it believes may bear criminal responsibility even while conflicts are ongoing. And the next example shows what happens when the process reaches the end. The ICC convicted a former Islamist police commander in Mali of war crimes and crimes against humanity, sentencing him to prison. The case took years to complete, but it shows that international criminal justice can move from investigation to conviction, even if it's slow. International law operates differently from domestic law. It doesn't rely on force. It relies on legitimacy, reputation, pressure, and time. Powerful states can resist consequences for a long time, but even they rarely ignore the law entirely. There's always a pattern. Governments rarely say we broke the law. They say our actions were justified. That need for justification tells us something. It tells us that the law still matters, even when it's bent. So, the point of international law is not to deliver instant justice. It exists to create a shared record, establish standards, enable consequences, even if delayed, and limit how openly powerful a state can act. Without it, there is no agreed language to describe violations, only competing narratives. International law is imperfect and it's unevenly enforced, and it reflects global power structures. But without it, there are no rules, only force. And that's why even when consequences are slow or incomplete, the law still matters. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you like it, subscribe and comment, and remain curious and keep valuing the truth. Bye.